I'm ready.
Alrighty, ready? Three, two, and one. Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Red Thoughts with Perry Picasso. I'm your host, Perry Picasso, and today I'm joined by a lovely guest.
Mariah Green.
Woo!
Yay!
Hello, Mariah. How are we doing? What's the vibe?
How am I doing? What's the vibe? I'm the vibe, and that's what I'm always doing.
Period.
I'm pretty good. I'm chilling. It's
Love.
Friday. Feels great outside. The sun's out.
Slay. Yeah, there's like no wind. It's not too cold. It's very nice outside.
Yeah, that's always a good indicator for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing just peachy as well. Excited to get to sit here and yap with you. And I have my little coffee here, and you got your matcha.
I got a great little green tea with some honey.
Clink.
Cheers. Oh,
Alrighty, Mariah is an incredible artist and curator. Oh yeah, what are your pronouns?
she, they.
She, they, and I go he, she, they. So yeah, they have an artwork right now at the Cheech Museum for the Desde Los Cielos group show, curated by Emmanuel Camacho Larios and myself, on display at the Cheech Museum until March 16 of 2025. And you have a piece in there titled
Leaving Planet Rectify. Meow.
Meow.
Meow. Okay.
Period.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful piece that I'm excited to
Thank
dive deeper
you.
in. But before I get ahead of myself, I want to know a little bit more about you. Tell me more about your life, how yeah, the journey that led for you to become an artist, or if you've always been an artist the moment you popped out.
Um, I feel like the earliest memories I have are these binders that you can get at like maybe Stater Brothers, art supply stores, and it was like those Lisa Frank ones, and it had like the entire set of stickers and markers and those like felty material.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
super obsessed with those as a kid. Um,
Love
kind
Lisa
of
Frank.
kind of got annoyed with having to work in those little outlines that they had pre-made for you. If you
Hmm.
do you remember what I'm talking about? It's like a certain felt material.
Yes, and if you colored
Yeah.
outside of it, your marker got ruined, especially if you're doing
Yeah.
yellow, it was all ruined and also everything just got very muddy.
It got all
I
chewed up. It was
hmm
weird. It was weird. That's when I was like, okay,
Wait, that's such a deep memory
that
that
is a
I've
deep, yeah.
suppressed. I feel like I
uh,
used yeah.
yeah.
I
This,
think I used to get the knockoffs though. So they were
I
probably
like
even
those
worse
though.
quality.
No, I like those. Anything that had like a set of everything I needed, it could be on
Mm.
the go.
Did
I
you ever
love the
have one of those
stickers.
cases where it was oh my God, it was like a briefcase and inside was all of the colors, all of the markers.
Wait.
And it was if you had that, it was you are the cool kid. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm
it
talking
came with
about?
a key,
A
right?
key?
It was like there's different versions.
Yeah.
I had one that had a key.
Oh, mine was never that fancy. I remember wanting one. It was the plastic ones and it had just the little button closure. And you would open it, it was little watercolor thingies with
Ooh.
a really, really stiff brush and markers that were already dry, crayons that had no pigment. But I was I want that so badly.
The crayons would they were ideas of crayons. They were the idea of a
A
crayon.
concept of a crayon.
You have what we think is a crayon.
Right.
You have a concept, yeah.
A
Yeah.
concept of a crayon. Okay.
Stickers, yeah. I love the sticker packs. I would sticker bomb places like my church.
Period. Queerifying the church. Okay, you've been a rebel at heart from the beginning.
I'm glad we're not in that building anymore, and I'm glad that no one growing up in that church will ever know where to find this. Oh well.
Oh,
Anyways.
okay.
Anyways.
Okay. So you were, I'm guessing, always creative as a child, or like to, what did you express
Yeah.
yourself, or?
I definitely moved from Lisa Frank binders onto trying to recreate like Howl's Moving Castle. So like
Hmm.
sculpture, whatever was around the house. It didn't look like Howl's Moving Castle,
But it felt
but
like
it
it.
was the concept of Howl's Moving Castle. And then discovered acrylic paint and tried art class in high school, although I really wanted to do ceramics.
Mm,
Um, but that was interesting. So I guess kind of getting into middle school is when I started to paint
okay.
outside of watercolor. I think I oh, anyways, I try to teach myself watercolor, but all the watercolor brushes were those really stiff.
They're like hard plastic,
Those
or which
are not
ones?
even brushes. I don't know what those are. What I'm trying to think, like what are some things that you could actually do with those types of brushes that are more productive than painting with them?
Stars. Those are really good for stars. If you get
Oh,
like
yeah.
white paint because they're so stiff, you could just like flick them, and those are very good for that.
Maybe if you need to add like small little highlight
Mm-hmm.
detail, but I feel like you could just use the back of the brush for that.
Yeah,
You can use anything,
truly, anything but the brush.
but if you have that laying around, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then in like middle school, high school, you started to experiment a little bit more. Was it something that you were drawn to? You're like, this is what I want to do, as a career? Was it something more of just like, oh, I'm just having fun? Like, did you have plans of doing something else prior to being an artist?
Oh,
Like Yulisa was telling me that they went to school for anthropology, I think is what
that's
they
so
said.
interesting. Yeah, there was a bunch of things that I wanted to do other than I feel like being thinking of being an artist was the last thing. The
Okay.
last thing that I was like, okay, I'm running from it at this point. Let's just do it and lean into it. Before leaning into it, I wanted to be a professor
Ooh.
for liberation theology, which is a very almost it feels like a very niche type of I don't know, branch of theology. Um I wanted to be a nun and then I wanted to be
Hmm.
a dominatrix
Ooh.
and have my own like private practice. Very random, very all over the
Was this
place.
all in high school?
This was high school.
Okay.
After high school is when I wanted to maybe go to school for liberation theology or culinary.
Ooh, a
Yeah,
chef.
not a chef.
Oh.
Not a chef.
But you wanted to be a chef.
I, well, Moreno Valley College, they didn't have culinary, but I didn't know that because I didn't know anything about school when I signed up for school. So I just was like, oh, I'll get all the basic things out of the way and figure out what to do.
Okay. When you went to school, so then you went in with no set major? Were you just sort of like, I'm just gonna get my basics and then while I'm there, transfer to something? Or were you like set on something before you got there?
No, it was culinary when I got
Okay.
there, but since they didn't have that, I took a break from school and tried to come back with some form of what I wanted to do. And that's when I was at RCC when I had first started. I was doing film studies. I wanted to kind of just review films, have access to go to films,
Mm.
and write about them.
What are your top four litter box? And
Ooh!
then one bonus one.
And one bonus one. I do a very poor job with my letterbox, but my ooh, see,
Do you know them off the top of
there's
your head?
there's different genres, but I think whatever I'm feeling right now, I'll just say what I'm feeling right now. Definitely, and in no particular order.
Okay.
Poor things,
So good. Oh my god. Yes. Okay. Good choice. We're
Moment of
starting off
silence.
strong.
Yes. Poor Things. Um, Lahain, which is like that black and white French film.
I don't think I've seen that.
I think it's, yeah, black and white French film. I think it's 1995
Okay.
or 96. Um, this one is just for me, obviously, but You Got Served is a childhood classic, a certified classic for me. Dancing movie. My uncle used to put it on when he would watch me. His version of watching me was going upstairs and turning on You Got Served or Meet the Fockers. Um, so You Got Served.
Okay.
Under the Skin, which is with oh my gosh, what's her name?
Under the skin.
Under the Skin. And when it comes out, it's gonna make me so mad. Right now, I'm just blinking because the stress of lights and a camera on you is crazy.
So sorry.
It's so crazy. I almost forgot my name when you were like, "And here we're here with," and I was like,
Yeah.
Alexa."
Sorry about that. It can be a little bit
We're
overwhelming
here
for
with
sure.
anybody. Well, Under the Skin, Paprika.
Mm,
Recently watched Paprika. I don't know what movie I'm on right now. Fourth, fifth.
yeah, that's your fourth.
Okay.
Slain. If you want to give a bonus, you're welcome to. If not, those are a solid top four.
Ooh, Nope.
Nope was really good.
Nope really opened my eyes up to, I think because I was thinking about Afrofuturism a lot more.
Mm,
And so when that movie came out, um, I had just watched Us,
okay.
and the idea of the tethered or like the other version of yourself
Mm-hmm.
was exactly this idea or concept that I had just moved away from
Mm,
into like Afrofuturistic thought. And so Nope was like, oh, what an amazing concept um, around so many different like topics and the family that it centered,
mm-hmm.
and their roots in just, I don't want to say Western society, but more so like cowboy
Mm-hmm.
culture.
Americana.
Yes, yes, yes. And really interesting to see Black people really kind of be faced with the situation just like any other day, but be able to overcome it and put reins on it in similar way to like taming the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought that was really interesting. And then also just a beautiful job in depicting the spaceship and the spaceship acting also kind of like as an extension of, I hate the word alien, but this like otherworldly life form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. See, now
Yeah.
I'm getting in it, but yeah, Nope.
I mean, it's a good movie.
It is good. I gotta watch it at least once a year.
I love
What's
that. Yeah, I know that for me, that was a movie that like when I walked out, I was like, this is gonna be a film that I'm gonna think about for a lot. And I
mm-hmm.
remember going into a rabbit hole afterwards of sort of like what every little thing meant and like the idea for me what struck was like the idea of the camera and sort of like what
Mm.
that does to somebody and sort of like oh my god, I literally had like a whole thing that I remember like writing down, but it was like essentially like the idea of like the camera and the industry and sort of like how when you for me I think about like have you read Suzanne Sontag's um notes on photography or something like that
Mm.
or essays on photography? Great. I think you would love it.
Okay.
She talks a lot about
Google it.
cameras and sort of like the idea of one the how cameras are they're just it's a very violent act of taking photos because
Mm.
it's everything about it is through one, the lens of a straight white man, and two, everything regarding the camera resembles that of a rifle. You're taking a shot,
Hmm.
you're shooting,
Loading,
you're loading the film, and also like the idea of like you're taking something, you're
ownership.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like there's just like a lot of like interesting things about the camera and sort of like what it does and like how it takes away the what's it called? It can almost take away like the autonomy of somebody or of something because it is no longer that person's like now you own parts of it and take it
Hmm.
with you. And I thought about that with like Nope and sort of like how that can be manipulated over time to like, take away the rights of marginalized, especially like the black community,
Hmm.
and how like that's how it starts off, right? Like talking about the history of the horse and how he was the first person depicted in film, but like nobody knows anything about him.
Hmm.
And like,
The horse's relationship to the camera too, like
hmm,
when they were on set and they were like, well, don't point the camera in the direction of the
yeah,
horse. And then it became a problem,
hmm,
obviously, because no one was listening. But that's really interesting too.
yeah, and also like the idea of I don't know, cause like also the creature, what do they call it? Blue jeans?
Yeah.
Blue jean, um, only attacks when you look at it, right? Or no, it's the other way.
If you don't look at it, like there's this really interesting, like,
You
non
can't look at it,
acknowledgement.
right?
Yeah. And it won't, like, essentially, like, take you,
Uh huh.
which was interesting because I don't know if you've ever watched, like, Cinema Sins.
Uh huh.
Because now that I'm thinking about it, remember the scene when it was at night? Oh, such a scary scene. It was at night. They were playing their father's records,
Uh huh.
and then everything just kind of shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, what was it? They started
This is the part where it starts raining blood.
raining blood, but it also had taken some horses at some point,
Uh
like
huh.
some
Oh yeah, yeah.
animals. But I'm like, did the animals, like, does that count? Like, did
I
they
think.
look? Like that's when I was like, okay, is this a cinema sin? Is
Oh,
it
I thought he
just
was just
for
eating it because it needed food with the horses. Right? It needs to eat. It needs to eat something.
But it was eating everything.
No, it spit it out though. If it wasn't an animal,
That's true.
so I feel
That's
like
true.
it was just like, bro, this is a big sack of meat over here.
But it was ready to devour anything because it took that big, like, blow up from that
Cause I think it knew that it was not real. Cause it spit it back out. No,
but that's what's so interesting.
I don't
I'm
know. We
I'm
can.
like, a deep dive on this
Mm.
movie is so needed. A revisit of this movie is needed.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was also thinking about the exploitation. Oh, that's what it was. The exploitation of the
Mhm.
camera.
Mhm.
Because it also starts off with the idea of the monkey and how the monkey goes crazy because it's being forced to perform in
Mhm.
front of the camera. So it's, I don't know, just like again, the idea, and I think about this a lot, that like we live in an age, and this may seem a little paranoid, but hear me out. We live in an age in which we are constantly being perceived. Like there is not a single moment, like it just feels like everything you do is constantly being like for others to watch,
Mhm.
and sort of like how that can, I don't know, like I'm like kids of this generation will never know what it's like to not exist in, I don't know, being observed in perpetuity.
Just being outside and playing, like, hide and go seek,
Yeah.
playing tag, it doesn't matter if it's being recorded and TikToked or not, which is okay. And I'm not trying to be like the advocate for it because I completely agree, but the level of documentation in this time is so high.
Yeah.
But having conversation around maybe ethics, and maybe that's what the book you were mentioning
I
was
think you should
also
read that.
mentioning. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm like, do you have that?
I don't have the physical.
I'll take it.
Ah,
I'll
I
buy
have
it.
some other photography books that I think you would find really interesting. There's one at the thrift store I was gonna get, but I couldn't get it because I was clocked in. And she was talking about t- uh, the archive of photography and sort of like the ethics of documenting folks. And one of the ones in there was of, oh my God, what's her name? Is it Kara Walker? No, Walker Evan, the one who took pictures during the
Carrie
Great,
Mae
who
Weems?
took pictures of the Great Depression, and it was
Oh,
the mother with her two children,
ooh.
and the ethics of that and
I'm
how.
such a I'm a poor art history major.
But you know which one I'm talking
I
about, right?
know
It's a very
it
iconic
it's
image.
like anybody knows that. I feel like
Hmm.
even kids who
Yeah,
of this age would know what that photo is.
that
Yeah.
one, and then also the one I in Suzanne Sontag's the essays I'm telling you about. One of the ones that she talks about is of this girl from the Middle East, and like this man took a picture of her. She was a teen girl, and she had like striking like green bluish eyes, but she had
Hijab.
her hijab pulled back a bit so you could like see her hair or something.
Uh-huh.
And it became like such an iconic image for Time magazine that he won so many awards. Like he was all
Oh
over the
my
place, but the
God.
girl received no compensation. And as a result, also because she was exposing herself and was doing all of this, she was completely hated by her village and suffered throughout all of her life and received no compensation, and was her reputation was ruined in her community. Sorry to go off
Well,
of that little tangent.
well, no, because anthropology and like all the different branches that it has, like that's obviously everything needs to be documented.
Hmm.
And even though the perspective is so greatly important in how you're documenting or immersing yourself into certain cultures and building rapport,
Hmm.
you still have to document and bringing in camera, bringing in journal. Um,
I like it.
it just affects that entire process
Hmm.
of, and it's interesting because it's like the cameras. I mean, it's not the camera's job, but it is what it does.
Hmm. Its function.
Its function, and it ends up being this documentative tool. But the ownership, like what you were mentioning earlier, afterwards, just affects people. It affects people greatly. Um, really interesting because even when getting more interested into archiving myself, I love photography. I love photography. I love
It's
working with
fun.
it, it's fun.
Yeah.
It could be without intention, fun, but can carry a lot of ill intentions
Yeah.
depending on who's taking the photo.
It's a very powerful tool.
It is, but I feel like photo written in audio, and I feel like video as well. I feel like video is like top tier documentative
Hmm.
tool as a archive. Like I want to see, I want to hear.
Yeah.
If anything, I wish I could taste, I smell that
Hmm.
moment, but I think that's why I focus on audio archiving because people can kind of speak for themselves.
Hmm.
You can get a sense of the moment. You're not maybe seeing it visually, and I don't want to be responsible for that type of ownership. Like people should have their own autonomy in that process as much as possible. Hopefully. Hopefully.
I think you're doing good. I
Yeah.
would love to hear more about that because that kind of leads me into sort of my next sort of question is I know you do have a lot of you do a lot of really cool things. Especially like you do a lot of really good curatorial, which also I was gonna say the show that you had right now at the Ram, incredible. I love it.
Thank
I
you.
saw it recently when I went last week, and it's incredible. I love the layout, love the text, the images you chose. It was very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know that you're also doing another project. I don't know if you want to talk about it, about archiving within, is it the IE or?
Yeah, or IE archives.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I have
If
no
you
idea
want to
where to
just give
start.
like a little brief talk about that, I don't know, I just think that's a very interesting
Well,
sort of project, especially since we were talking about photography archive and sort of, yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of moving parts with it. I'm trying to put it on a timeline. So, IE Archives was something that felt important in terms of okay, I am witnessing a lot of artists in the Inland Empire who are creating work, but they're also including the context of the IE
Hmm.
within their practice. And if you look up artists in the Inland Empire, early 2000s, like you're not going to really see anything. So I thought it would be really important to kind of gather what is going on right now as much as possible
Hmm.
through physical items, flyers, especially stickers. I love collecting artist stickers. Um, just anything. Like I actually have a bag of hay that was in
For regalo.
yeah. And I love opening it and just smelling it and I feel like not only am I back in the gallery, but I'm also um in Muscoy. Like I feel like I'm in two places at once.
Mm.
And that feels very special. Um so just collecting things like that, but also was hoping um that artists who are interested in history or are really interested in like warehouse development and they like Fernanda really does a great job with documenting Bloomington's um unfortunate,
Like,
sometimes it feels like an everlasting set of changes, documenting that, working with artists like that, keeping a submission form open so it kind of encourages folks to submit and also get a sense for what this archive is about
mm.
and more so maybe bringing in conversations around ethics around what is documented.
And how it's collected and presented.
So I do put on the submission form that it's not a place for commercialized work.
Hmm.
I'll say, for example, because this is really important, and I feel like I've been wanting to maybe talk about ethics, art ethics in the IE a lot more, but there has been submissions where, yes, it was taken in the IE, Marina Valley, for example, but it was for someone's clothing brand.
Mm.
And like, as much as I would love to platform all the work that went into the shoot, the person in the photo, where it's at, the brand, all was associated with, that's not really the intention here.
Okay.
So I have to decline it. And that's a
Mm.
really weird process. That's a really
The
weird thing to
curation of
just
it.
yeah, it's a weird thing to kind of sit
Mm.
with, but another future branch, two branches that I would love to have with the IE archives is people who are just interested in history in general cuz I know a lot of history nerds out here.
Hmm.
Big sharers. I love me a big sharer, a big history
Mm.
yapper. Um they'll share anything. I love it. I love it so
Yeah.
much. So if they have findings that are like historic, that maybe help connect the dots for some folks.
I need to show. I have a map of Palestine from the 1800s that I got from the thrift store. Would love to have you help me document it. It's in my apartment.
Okay, like scanned.
I have like a physical, like from an actual, like from a book pamphlet or something.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like, I saw it and I was like, I need to get this before somebody snatches this and destroys it.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
that's also I feel like you work in a really interesting place where people are or I'll say for myself, I go thrifting because I love a good repurpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's so much life in things that get like tossed so quickly. But stuff like that, it's like, yeah, it's at the thrift store. Or maybe you're just walking down the street and you find that on the floor. I don't interesting thing to find on the streets of Riverside on Main Street. But like there's something in the act in that decision of, oh, I want to keep this someone else because someone else might destroy this.
Yeah.
And what could that mean? You know, like and then that can there's this whole hoarding aspect that I also think about where I'm like,
And
okay,
like
can't pick
knowing
up
like
everything.
how do you make it accessible as well and make it so that way it's like
Yeah,
not just because I love archiving and like the idea of also making it accessible for as folks to have and be able to you know use it. That's why I'm like, guys, please come use my books, come take as many of them as you want.
that's my ooh. I remember talking to one of the special collections archivist Sandy at UCR the Rivera Library.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we every time we see each other we kind of talk about like, okay, what are the most preferred ways?
Hmm.
And we're always like, yes, physical, but not everyone could. It
Physically
depends.
attend.
Like
Hmm.
it depends. Having access to it digitally is always great.
Hmm.
Um, but then, how is it set up digitally? Is it through a library? Do you need a library card?
Yeah.
Archives are not always accessible. Oh my goodness. I have beef with
Please tell me the
the
tea.
a lot of things that I was doing like digging into in tabs that I saved, bookmarked, and I have to like I understand that there's a process when you need to set up an appointment to view these things and get access to them. But if you don't get a response, or if
Mm.
you're not coming with a certain title behind your name,
Or also, I feel like the times are very much like during working when people, you know, from like 11 to 2.
yeah, we're open from 11 to 11:32. Like some
Right.
crazy, something inaccessible, but they do have a lot of material
Hmm.
when it comes to Riverside that dives a little deeper than the archive at the main library.
Okay.
Cause like the main library, I've noticed I have a funny
Tell me why my tummy was also making a little rumbling noise. They're
shh,
communicating.
they're connecting Bluetooth.
The
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth is ready to pair.
I'm definitely going off on a tangent a little bit, but there was this time or working with the space scene on that East Side project. I was looking for origins, black origins in Riverside, the IE, San Bernardino, anything, just to kind of get routed in
Hmm.
better directions, but with something physical that's not just online. Was there anything written? So I go to the library in the archive, which also is open during like some funny hours. Like
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have been working down the street. Um, and I was like, yeah, I'm looking for anything with these, keywords. And she was like, um, I don't think we have anything. Like she started searching it up a little bit. I understand I didn't really like prep with the call beforehand like I've done in the past. It's just kind of like on a whim. And she was just like, "No, we don't really have anything in terms of like origins." And
Hmm.
she didn't even really look. And then
She just opened up the computer. Nope.
yeah, that's what I'm just watching her like, is this your first day? And then I kid you not, she looked past me and she's like, "Oh." She sat up, went and walked over and grabbed this book. This book that just happened to be on this like book cart across from her
Hmm.
that said Black Origins in the Inland Empire.
Oh, right, right.
Oh my gosh. And she was like, "I'm actually just standing in for the main archivist today." And I was like, give me the book. Let me get out of here. Let me get out
I'd
of
be
here.
pissed.
And I was just like, there's no way. There's no way to
Interesting.
have people like that be the gatekeepers of information and history. And I thought that was crazy. She literally just happened to see it like as I was about to just give up.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really strange. I'm sorry,
No, I
but I
I
mean,
don't
I'm glad you
know.
at least got something.
But it's always like really weird. I
Yeah,
feel like it's
it's a lot of chance.
yeah, you got to really feel invested enough. And it sucks to also have to know when to let it go. But anyways, physical, digital, um that's something that why I also started personally collecting for the IE archives, um because I want to know the stories of the IE but through its artists.
Hmm.
It'd be great to have a physical library one day, similar to LACA. I'm gonna do a quick plug because LACA, the Los Angeles Contemporary Archive,
Shout out Laka, Laka,
yes, LACA,
Laka.
is a phenomenal space where they have archive like say say for example a performative piece was done and there was certain like elements materials related to that or even leading up to how those things were created, just like the
Hmm.
entire process, like that is archived,
Wow.
and that's really cool.
Yeah.
I Yeah, so things like that
Hmm.
would be really inspiring to have. The Garcia Center has a really is the only place I know of in the IE that has collected books by artists and writers in the IE in their library. Very cool.
I feel like Urge Palette has some, but I think they're for sale, like books and zines. But I guess it's
Yes.
not quite the same.
And that's, oh my gosh, shout out Urge Palette.
Shout out Urge Palette
I wouldn't
and
mind spending money for real. They are a business. I thought you were doing a heart sign. I was about to be like, yeah,
we love
we love
you,
you. No names.
all of you. Urge
No,
Palette and Paint
not all of
Sugar.
you.
Oh, you got
Not just one.
just the one. You know who you are.
You know exactly who you are.
We're so
Bruh, I crashed out on that person because they fucking suck.
okay.
What are we talking
At
about?
the archive. I mean, we can talk about your piece if you want right now from the Cheech. Let me get my
Oh,
glasses.
I really.
Let me get my glasses to be a little more professional. Let's rewind it a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna read your
Oh my
blurb.
gosh, shoot.
So Mariah Green has an art piece at the Cheech titled "Leaving Planet Rectify Now." Um, so it goes. Leaving Planet Rectify Now is a fantasy self-portrait of artist Mariah Green, 1996 to present. This self-portrait is a curated accumulation of moments, images, items, writings, paintings, drawings, books, and cyanotypes. Since before her birth until now on Planet Rectify, Black women slash femmes suffer from depression and oppression in the forms of racism and sexism daily. This is an this is the exact reason Mariah must leave now. The, There is important breath work to be done, art to be made, love to be created, and sea mammals to migrate with. She is an explorer and exploration and exploration is joy.
Yes.
Period. It
Yay!
is an incredible piece that you have. And just for context, for folks who might not be able to go, who haven't gone, it is hanging from the ceiling on like an acrylic
Plexi.
plexiglass.
Uh-huh.
So you walk in through the door of the entrance and it's like immediately on top of you with a light beaming on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you a little context of the work and so you can get a better idea and a sense of where it is in space because I feel like that is
Yeah.
very important for this piece.
Very, very important.
So
Um,
please tell me everything about this. I love this one a lot.
I love this piece. I feel like I honestly, because of a lot of other things going on, was struggling with getting a concept down. But I am a huge advocate of portraits, like artists doing their own self portraits, whatever that may look like. And I just figured, okay, what do I have on hand? And I was able to kind of just do a little memory lane through all the work that I
Hmm.
just sit with, that I migrate with every time I move, like my portfolios, my different um, sketchbooks that no one has seen, and things like that. And I figured that it would be really fun to do a self portrait, um, and kind of do a fantasy one where maybe like this door piece. I remember I was doing a flyer years ago and I wanted to kind of add a by hand element into it. So I did this door, so like cutting that out and just essentially just plugging and playing these pieces onto this blank wall that I had in my bedroom and placing them in areas where I felt it was close to me. The door felt really symbolic to be at the chest. Um, I do have this like orchid tattoo on my chest, so I felt like that was really cool to place on the neck. Like there are things here where are more realistic, but even including um I'm trying to even look at like the cyanotype where I'm like something very feminine for me was tied into those like lace underwear, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I don't want to have like literal lace underwear, but I can bring the idea of
The
this item, the
concept.
concept that I have, um
Okay.
and utilizing cyanotypes. There's like old paintings that I did of these bursts from a show years ago where I was first documenting what it might be like traveling through and processing myself through a wormhole or a black hole, like
Ooh.
stretching myself, and you're seeing and tracking with me that change.
Almost like slices of time.
Exactly. Um, so bringing in elements like that, these
Hmm.
arms are watercolor that I pulled from a stencil of this painting that I did of my little sister. Journal entries. I feel like that was the toughest one, honestly, to revisit was these journal entries, um, that I decided to transfer onto a typewriter and also word for word type it out and then create this inner dialogue that was kind of going on after I revisited that. Um,
Was it almost like having a conversation with yourself?
yeah, really interesting moments of, okay, well, how do I feel now? Or
Hmm.
is there anything different? And get faced with such like daunting thoughts.
Are you telling me like, oh my God. You go on your
It's
Scooby
like
snacks?
it's in a little bit, in a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think once all these elements started coming together, um, and I got the feel for the layout and I felt comfortable, I was like, okay, well, plexiglass, yes,
Mm.
but the idea of movement was really important because I think I had a piece I was like standing up like this
Mm-hmm.
prior to, and that felt appropriate. But to kind of think of this flat surface piece in movement was kind of difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I thought about this,
Hmm.
but then I was like, oh, okay, I have things that would slide off like dice and
Yeah.
notepads and stuff. It's making it a lot crazier than how maybe I feel. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, so the idea around hanging it like this made a lot more sense. And I think because I worked there, it made it really, I knew it was going to be able to work because I knew what tools we had on the job.
Right. You're
And I knew,
familiar with it.
yeah. So that was helpful. Excuse me. But yeah, lots of lots of memories tied into this one. Even just the since it's like a fantasy portrait, even just playing around with the dates.
Mm.
I think I had also included I don't think I included it onto the label, but I did put 1996, the year I was born, to the present, which could be anytime.
Yeah.
But more so like I can revisit this at any
Yep.
time. It's very distant,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still very present with me. And I think later I said that I was traveling to my inner coordinates and I
Mm-hmm.
put like X point 337 or something like that. Just like the idea of like which other part inside myself am I traveling into post this leaving of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. So then this is a very like um I don't know, something about this, it's like a very interesting way of doing a self portrait because it's almost like a collection of your memories.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Scooby snack. I'll have
One.
one.
Just one?
Just one.
I'll leave them right here.
Thank you. Um, but what I was gonna ask though is, how did you decide what pieces to include? Because it seems like you having to like go through everything you do and knowing like this is what I want, this is appropriate, like having to like again curate that.
Um
Was that a difficult challenge? Was it easy? Like,
it was a challenge because I can't include everything and not everything made sense.
okay.
Um and I think something that ended up balancing it out is when I started cutting out the images from the Tar Beach book
Mm,
and including like an actual physical image. There's just some things where I'm like, okay, I'm okay if this only makes sense to myself.
okay.
Including everything is not always like as important to me as it is. I kind of love the idea of keeping some things for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like even missing like an additional leg. I know where that other leg's at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I know where me and this version of myself lie cuz there's also a very heavy I wouldn't say spiritual. I'm trying to think of like the a different word that can accurately describe it, but leaving Planet Rectify now in all caps was me also literally having to flee a version of myself
Hmm.
that I couldn't wait to get rid of. Not in a completely negative way, but there was just a whole situation at the time where I felt I, as soon as I got to the point where I was able to get my full autonomy around it back, like, okay, that's done. I'm not working on that thing
Mm-hmm.
with this person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can move on. What does that mean? What does that look like? So that's why it was so interesting to have to create a piece and kind of have the pressures of it being like, oh, it's gonna be at the Cheech. That alone, and not wanting to disappoint y'all, like,
You could never.
oh my gosh, the disappointment was about to haunt me forever. So it felt really nice to literally go back into myself, go back into the things that I had, do a very healthy recap, leave this idea, or even flirt with the idea where I feel like sometimes I mention this to people close to me where Black women definitely get put into positions of having to rectify situations, problem solve situations, and it sucks because we know we could do it. We know we can. But the act of choosing not to is a lot more difficult than me saying that out loud. So,
Also, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
exactly. And I think that's something that I needed to. I'm grateful that I was able to slow down and create something as intimate as like a self portrait and then make some fun out of it. Like, create a story where this person, me, is acknowledging the treatments on this planet that resembles our own and deciding that it is time to flee and deciding that it isn't something that I have to handle. I can crash out if I want to. I actually love that word. I love that term. I love that idea because for me, it means something more than just when people are like, oh, I'm going to crash out. Like, I'm just like, what do you mean you're out of this thing? You're out of, I don't know. What, like those types of things for me I can't even think about because I'm like I have bigger fish to fry,
Right.
bigger things to think about that could that actually qualify me to be the first candidate to crash out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I look at the room sometimes that I'm in and I'm like I'm hearing things that people are saying, but y'all still have it pretty good.
Right.
Pretty good. So, yeah, definitely. I don't know. Yeah.
For this, since it is so personal and like hearing you talk about this, which by the way, thank you for sharing. Sorry to hear that it's been a rough time. Um, was it ever were you ever intimidated by the idea that like this is gonna be viewed by the public and sort of like letting people into that? Or were you like, no, this is for me or yeah, you know?
Definitely for me. Uh so another reason why it was fun to hang the piece in that position is like for a couple of things. I think when I am curating, I like to defy sometimes that eyeline rule of like that 58-60 eyeline rule. If people don't know, that's typically the height line where,
Like the center of the painting, right?
yeah, or also just like the average height line for folks to view work is that's the height that people install work. But I feel like when I'm curating, I intentionally like either just setting the whole show a little bit higher than that or certain pieces higher than that where there's a form of acknowledgement going on
Mm.
and they're in this act of acknowledgement. So that was really nice. Like,
That is
you
true.
might miss this,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do catch it, there's a certain way that you have to do that. Um, so it's kind of like, if you catch it, you catch it, and if you don't, you don't. And then I also like the idea where it's like, I'm so tired of like being in the position to problem solve, rectify, that people who I feel would maybe normally put me in those situations, and I'm watching them in acknowledgement of it. I had this idea in my head that it was literally zapping them.
Hmm.
Like, if you're under it, you're like literally being zapped. And that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing.
Hmm.
It could be a bad thing.
Could. Or it could be a little like wake up moment.
Yeah, where it's something like, do you know what this means? And then
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I don't care what you might think about it. I'm just doing this for myself. The dice were really important to me,
Hmm.
as an element of like taking a chance on myself, um, and seeing how people might engage with that, with those types of elements. Like, really interesting. It's been interesting also, obviously, working there and seeing people do a bunch of different things. I love when people lay down and take a moment to fly with me. Like, I think getting into that position is really important for people, mentally, is to explore those ideas of themselves flying, and specifically flying over their situations. And I think
Hmm.
that's also what I meant by like the zapping. It's like, I'm flying over, like, you can't touch me.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I will not be in the position to rectify because
Hmm.
I'm leaving. Um, just thinking about the storytelling, but that's a perfect
Yeah,
way
like
to
you brought
talk.
this book. Tell me about this book.
Uh, I love this book. Not a lot of people, no one knows. I guess when if they watch this, they'll know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain pages that I cut out from my personal copy of Tar Beach. Um,
What is this book about? Or sort of, or what spoke to you about this?
uh, um, like I said, going through the materials that I had at home, Tar Beach, by Faith Ringgold, incredible artist. I don't know what else there is to say, except for the fact that you should look at her quilts. Um, Using materials that I had on hand, I had this book, and I was just revisiting it as I was revisiting everything that I had. And as I was going through the book that I remembered since childhood, there's this character, and her name's Cassie, and she is flying
Hmm.
throughout this entire book. She's flying over places where very early on she's noticed are not as accepting, to folks that look like her. She ends up mentioning flying over this union building that her, and I'll quote it, but still, and she's talking about her father as she's flying over this union building, and she says, but still he can't join the union because grandpa wasn't a member. Well, daddy is going to own that building because I'm going to fly over it and give it to him. And I was just like, ooh,
Hmm.
I feel like these are the types of thoughts that I had as a kid, like really creative, really, you imagine like that person outside the window running with you, or like doing that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
creative stuff with you. And I'm like, this sunk me back into the type of creative exploration that I had as a child, where you can outwardly express ideas that might sound crazy, but I'm gonna fly over it and I'm gonna give it to him. Like, oh,
Yeah, there's also like a sense of power, or sort of the what's it called? Feeling like you have an authority, not an authority, but sort of like, yeah, having this like unbound power that hasn't been challenged or sort of almost being out of you yet,
yeah. Like it's not like not just accepting it,
but owning it
but owning it. Um,
and acting on it.
yeah, for a bunch of different reasons. And I feel like similar to Cassie, I was recognizing like, okay, why can't this person that's telling me be my friend anymore? Because her mom's telling me that she doesn't want her to be friends with black people. And grappling,
Boo.
I know, boo. But like grappling with stuff like that, because the next line is, then it won't matter that he's not in their old union or whether he's colored or a half breed Indian, like they say. So I just love the way that it starts with this idea of, well, forget that. And also, I acknowledge, like, there's so much that you could just say, like, very quick, like, oh, I'm gonna crash out, or I wanna fly over it, it's mine. I guess this form of manifesting, but there are deeper reasons why people are saying those things. So as much as I want to be like, oh, I don't care what people think, there is like an entire present to 1996 context
Hmm.
that they're missing out on. Doesn't matter, they don't need it, and I don't have to explain it. Type of concept. So this book definitely made its way into the piece after I revisited it, but in my personal copy, I had started cutting it up. And that was a form of sacrifice. That actually hurt a lot
Hmm.
because after the piece was up and I was looking at my older copy, I was like, dang, I'm not going to see that quilt anymore that's in the piece. I'm not going to see Cassie flying because I placed that over my head. But Shadow Osvaldo um, was in New York for some time. And I had just and I told him this that it was maybe 20 minutes I had revisited the book, had these sad thoughts, and he texted me and was like, hey, I'm at the Met, and I don't know if you have your own personal copy of Tar Beach, but I can get this one for you. And I was like, that's so crazy. I was literally just revisiting that.
Divine timing.
I'm not even a firm believer in stuff like that, but there's some stuff that be happening. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna listen. Very important book to me. I'm glad to have this copy again in hardcover. And yeah, I had
Hmm.
cut out this back version
For the
for
that's the
the
one that's in
piece.
the piece, right?
So it's nice to see this again.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Now I want
This
to
book,
read it. It seems like a very for I don't know. I'm like,
very, very good.
yeah,
I love the quilting aspects of it, like the borders that got
along the
added.
bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because like I think about like children's books and how people are sort of one try to like dumb a lot of things down.
Yeah,
But like this seems like a very mature book, and I know sometimes people are like, kids don't understand that, but it's like, no, when you live through these experiences, you know exactly what the fuck is going on.
yeah.
And so I
Very
think,
early.
yeah, from like a very early age, and so like to like have this be told and not dumbed down, like literally talking about like the union and like talking about the half this what was it half,
Talking about race.
yes, talking about race and sort of the nuances of it.
Yes. And we all know race does not exist. It exists within the imagination that we are unfortunately involved in as a society, but it is not real.
It is a
So,
construct.
for all the young people who are documenting on TikTok and stuff, I don't know. I just hope people feel seen. And I hope that they feel really encouraged to, um, like, even tying it back into the conversation where we're like, yes, people are just, they are documenting, but, insert who you are and maybe your background or sorry, yeah, like your cultural backgrounds into the work that you're doing because that's what's really needed. We don't need more content that is just another template of the previous content. Um, have conversations with your friends, really get to know people. I think that's like a really important thing to counter the concerns around unethical documentation and things like that, like being genuine and
Hmm.
being present, as hard as it is. As hard as it is.
But it needs to be done.
It needs to be done,
Unfortunately.
so get to work, soldier.
Yeah, because otherwise, if we don't document it, nobody else is gonna be documenting it.
Yeah,
And if they do, it's gonna be through really shitty lens.
it's gonna be through census information.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
god. I was gonna ask you, how do you, which is kind of related to it, but I'm like, do you identify yourself with sort of the Chicano community and sort of like how has your relationship been with that, if you feel comfortable? I know
That's a
there's a
really
loaded
interesting
question.
conversation. No, that's a really important question to ask, but I think that's mainly growing up in the Inland Empire. I I know the demographics. Like I feel like I don't know, so immersed with what's going on and in full support. I think that's what's really important, especially for example working at the Cheech. Um it feels really special honestly to be able to just in that one setting, but in all settings being able to be so excited and be in solidarity, being in support. Um, I think because of my role too, like bringing the shows in, bringing in somebody's life into a space and properly giving information out around the show is exactly what I feel should be my role. I don't feel like I should be the one curating.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I should be the one to necessarily give a full on tour.
Hmm.
I feel like people who are associated with the culture need to be the ones in charge of sharing those stories. Um,
Interesting.
but as a role to be in solidarity.
You'll support any other sort of aspects that we need help with.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think at the end of the day, history needs that. Um, I wish there was more spaces for Black creatives.
I really hope so.
I really hope so too. But of course, for now, being in solidarity is the most important part to me.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like you're starting to make your own space because I know you do a lot of curation, which also congrats on the show you recently had at the
Oh,
Little Gallery in San Bernardino.
yay.
Sorry I could not make it that
No,
day.
you're
I
okay.
had no access to a car. I
No,
can't drive. Can
you're
I?
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
You're
sorry. I
okay.
was there.
You're okay.
But it was a really good show, and if you have some time, would love to hear a little bit about your curation because it is also interesting to hear that you don't even feel comfortable curating um, a space sort of the like the Chicano, and I
If
think
it's specific to a singular culture, I don't. I
And
think that's just like an ethical stance.
I agree. I think because like for me, I'm always like I only feel comfortable speaking on as much as how do I say what am I trying to say? Um, Basically like I know my place
Hmm.
essentially, and knowing like this is as much as I'm comfortable speaking on because this is as much as I feel like I have an authority or sort of like enough of a ground to stand on because I'm like
Yeah.
I exactly. I'm like, I'm not going to go into other spaces and tell you guys how to run things, but if you need help moving something, something that like has
Yeah.
no direct correlation with sort of the identity or sort of the themes of it, you know, I can help in all the other ways that, you need help uplifting much more on, I guess, like the logistical elements, things that like have to be done.
I love the role of like, okay, everyone wants to take a group picture. I'm okay with taking the picture. I don't think I need to necessarily be in the picture,
Mm.
but I know that it's important for everyone who should be within this context to be in it.
Hmm.
So playing that background character is I feel like I
Yeah.
love being the background character for the most part. But in the same situations, it's like, yeah, what do you need help with? I'll you want the event's over, I'll put the chairs away, you need help?
Right.
Like just stuff like
Okay.
that. Or like what can I learn right now and be more in appreciation for yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Um, I guess one more question about the piece. Do you have a sort of takeaway that you want for folks to see, like have when they experience it, or are you like, no, I don't care,
Mm,
like, or for you is it sort of like the act that you did it all is satisfying?
ooh, I don't really get time to slow down and think about these things.
I know this is why I'm like, I want to have these conversations. I feel like you're always
Mm, that's a
go go
good one.
go.
That's a good one. I feel like for my part in it, I as soon as the piece is done, it's up and the words go along with it. I'm I'm very content.
Okay.
Very, very content. I think as far as maybe thinking about takeaways for the show in general or maybe just my piece in the show is and it's so interesting. I hate bringing up the fact that I work there, but I do make the labels.
Mm-hmm.
So reading everybody's descriptions is such an emotional task, but it's so necessary because I love context.
Mm-hmm.
I love if there's anything provided that might invite me into the world of thought that the artists were thinking. So definitely taking the time and going to see the show and reading every single description, I feel like is more important than sharing a picture of it, like
Mm.
trying to see how you might feel or I don't know, just really like I don't know. What's it called? When people are reading like active reading, like highlighting, taking notes, like
Mm-hmm.
annotating, like really immersing yourself in being present.
And not like passively viewing.
Yeah. And looking at the clock. Like don't
Right.
come in on your lunch break. Come in on your lunch break, but
Focus on like one piece very well.
yeah, like once a week, one day every week, look at what that they'll probably add up to like what two pieces per visit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was something I was gonna say earlier about hanging it up. Is it forces the viewer to have a more active engagement with it because exactly what you were saying is since it isn't at your eye level, it's not something sort of standard. In
Hmm.
order to see it, you have to move, and by the act of you doing that, you willingly like changed yours. I don't know. There's something about
Yeah.
that.
Like, yeah. And that's a new thing that I'm still exploring.
I love that. I remember for my thesis show, is that what you would call it? For my UCLA.
You tell me.
I don't know what they called it because I'm like, it wasn't grad school, but it was like the final showing. I had one of my paintings on the floor
Ooh.
because I love because it was a tiger painting and it was supposed to be like in a lake. So all of the other pieces were like at eye level, and then except for that one where it would be hanging, it was directly on the floor,
Mhm.
and it sort of like forced people to kind of go around it and like look down at it.
Ooh, I
And then I
love that.
had pieces that were like also like higher and like lower. So there was like a whole bunch of variations. So like when this was happening, I was so excited because I love fucking with changing, forcing yourself to like break out of the like white gallery space and like exploring all of the other elements. And like I
Hmm.
love the idea of also like taking up space
Yeah.
and making your presence known.
And it naturally goes along with, the work that's being shown. Because I feel like even though I don't know what the thesis show was necessarily about, but just like hearing about the placement, it's like you're putting people already in a situation to kind of like engage with the thoughts that you have been thinking about. And so placing them in a certain way, it's like I too had to maneuver maybe some of these physical spaces that are being represented. Like, yes, you maybe when it you said a tiger,
Hmm.
you wouldn't see a tiger necessarily on the roof, but you would see them more so at this like ground level.
Hmm.
So it's like that's really cool. I love things like that. I love disturbing the program. Pretty much.
Anarchy! Woo! Okay.
Exactly.
Moving forward, do you see yourself making more of this? I know you said that this was 1996 to now, so I'm guessing this is something you will continue to explore or sort of like add or take away, or I don't know, you don't have to talk about this piece in particular, just sort of
Yeah.
like your art career in general, because you do a lot of curating. Is that something that you want to dive deeper into? Do you want to do more of your own practice? All of the above? Please,
I
I want the
mean,
inside scoop.
for the curation, I just booked something for 2027. Like
Oh, you're years
I'm
ahead.
I'm I'm in it. I'm in it. But
Woo!
when it comes to
Congrats.
my thank you. When it comes to my own practice, I um had thought about like, okay, yeah, like the present and added some elements in that piece that are like quite literally were made for the piece, like the cyanotypes, for example.
Mm,
So now I'm focusing on re-upping, journaling, kind of like going through this next decade essentially
mm.
of creating and
Just like
trying,
living life.
yeah, just also thinking of having a solo show if I can.
Oh,
Have been oil
absolutely.
painting again, which it's been some time.
I love oil
I
painting.
love oil
I love
painting.
oil
We're
painting.
crazy. Painters are crazy.
We kind of are.
Nobody gets it. Nobody understands. But we're the most craziest.
Yeah, there's something very, I don't know. You just, when you're locked in there, like,
You don't care if you went to the back. You're like, oh, I should get some water. And you're like, okay, well, let me just get this section. And then the sun's
yeah.
gone. And then you're like, I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm. No, literally. And especially here, I'm like, there's no window. So, like, I forget what time it is.
Oh my God.
And so I literally feel like, oh my God, why am I having a headache? Oh, girl, it's 3 p.m. and you haven't eaten and you've been
I've
here
only
since
had
7 in the
coffee.
morning. I will only have a Coke Zero.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even drink coffee most of the time. I just drink Coke Zero.
You
Today.
need a big, like, clock thing, alarm that just goes off, like, every hour. And it will,
Walk
oh,
outside.
yeah, it'll only stop if you, like, open the door, like, triggers it or something.
That's smart.
But I'm saying that and I'm like taking zero advice from
Right,
myself.
right.
Yeah, that's just how advice goes.
It'd be like that. Um, Well, thank you so much for joining. So glad I got to talk to you about this piece. Thank you for sharing the book, telling me about. I'm also glad that we talked about archiving and like the ethics of it because I've been dying to talk about this because it's such a important topic and
Mhm.
like thank you. Thank
Yeah, no, I
you.
appreciate you for opening up your space
Of
for not
course.
just me, but all the artists
Anytime.
to come share.
Let the folks know where they can find you. Please, if you enjoy Mariah's work, hit them up, put them in your show. They're incredible. Or if you want to have her curate a show for your space, also hit them up. They're incredible. So yeah, let them know where to find you.
You could catch me at a local arts walk, or you can follow me on Instagram at Mariah Green Arts.
Slay. Do you have a website as well?
No website. No website.
Period.
Oh,
Just the
I don't want
IG.
to. I don't want to add that onto my
Your plate.
plate. Yeah,
Makes it's a lot of work.
I always hear that, and that always steers me away.
Yeah. If you need help, I got you. Yeah, you guys can find me everywhere. Art Perry, my website, perrypicasso.com. Check out the podcast, Red Thoughts Perry. And go check out the show, Desde Los Cielos, at the Cheech from now until March 16th. Go check out Mariah's work as well as all of the other incredible artists.
Please.
Yeah, until next time.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank
Woo!
you.
Oh my God, thank you, Mariah.
That was fun.
Yay! I'm
Yay!
glad we got this